Roughly 90% of your body's serotonin is produced in the gut, not the brain, and a 104-study systematic review finalized in March 2026 just identified exactly which 8 food categories keep that system functioning the way it should. The evidence now spans 20 countries and 16 randomized controlled trials. In April 2026, a systematic review pulling together 104 separate studies across more than 20 countries was selected as the Nutrition Society's Paper of the Month. It asked one question: does what you eat shape how you feel? At a clinical level, the answer involves your gut, your immune system, and a communication highway running directly to your brain. Here is exactly what the science found, mechanism by mechanism. Researchers at Monash University and the University of Limerick started with 10,249 published articles. After rigorous screening, 104 studies survived, 88 observational studies and 16 clinical trials, spanning populations across more than 20 countries. That breadth matters. When a signal holds across different ethnicities, age groups, and healthcare systems, it is not a fluke of one population's genetics or culture. What they found, published in Nutrition Research Reviews and honored by the Nutrition Society in April 2026, was consistent. People who followed a Mediterranean-style diet more closely consistently reported lower levels of depression, anxiety, and stress, alongside better overall well-being and quality of life. But here is what makes this more than a correlation. The researchers also mapped out why. And the biology is stranger and more powerful than most people realize. Before we get to the mechanisms, let us be precise about what this diet actually is, because the word Mediterranean gets used loosely. The pattern defined in the research is centered on vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, olive oil, whole grains, fermented foods, and fish. It limits highly processed foods and excessive red meat. There is no calorie counting, no elimination, no single superfood carrying the weight. This is a dietary pattern, a way of assembling meals, not a supplement protocol. That distinction matters enormously because the mental health effects in this review were not driven by one nutrient. They emerged from the interaction of dozens of compounds working in concert across multiple biological systems, which raises the obvious question: which systems exactly? The first one is the one you have probably heard about, but not like this. Your gut and your brain are in constant two-way communication through what researchers call the gut-brain axis, a network of neural, endocrine, immune, and metabolic signaling pathways. A well-balanced gut microbiota is essential for producing neuromodulatory molecules, including serotonin and short-chain fatty acids that directly influence mood, cognitive function, and emotional well-being. Here is the critical detail. Approximately 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut, not the brain. The Mediterranean diet's high fiber content from legumes, whole grains, and vegetables selectively feeds beneficial bacterial strains that support this production. Its fermented foods, yogurt, kefir, aged cheese, introduce live cultures directly. Research published in Frontiers in Molecular Neuroscience in March 2026 confirmed that Mediterranean-style dietary patterns enhance microbial diversity and gut-brain communication. But the gut is only one pathway. There is a second mechanism running in parallel, and it may be the more consequential one. The second mechanism is inflammation. Chronic low-grade neuroinflammation is now understood to be closely linked to the biology of depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. The Mediterranean diet is dense in compounds with anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties: omega-3 fatty acids from oily fish, polyphenols from olive oil and vegetables, and flavonoids from fruits and legumes. Omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and docosahexaenoic acid DHA, found in the fish-forward Mediterranean eating pattern, have emerged in recent peer-reviewed research as particularly significant. A 2025 review in the journal Nutrients synthesized evidence that EPA and DHA modulate the gut-brain axis and are associated in research with alleviating depressive symptoms, operating partly by reducing the inflammatory signaling that disrupts normal mood regulation. The Mediterranean diet delivers these compounds not as isolated supplements, but embedded in whole food matrices alongside fiber, polyphenols, and minerals, a combination the research suggests may amplify their biological effect. But the cognitive story goes even further. Back to the 104 studies. The review did not just find a vague, positive association. It found specific, consistent signals across 3 distinct mental health domains. First, depressive symptoms. Across both observational studies and clinical trials, higher Mediterranean diet adherence was associated with lower depressive symptom scores. Second, anxiety. A parallel signal held across diverse populations. Third, perceived stress. Again, the association was consistent across studies. The 16 clinical trials in the review are particularly important because randomized controlled trials can test causality, not just correlation. These included participants both from healthy adult populations and from people living with chronic health conditions, meaning the signal is not confined to low-risk individuals. Researchers at Deakin University's Food and Mood Center, one of the world's leading nutritional psychiatry groups, have separately described the Mediterranean diet as currently holding the most evidence for a positive effect on depressive symptoms of any dietary pattern studied. But here is what almost no one mentions: what this pattern does to the aging brain. A 2025 meta-analysis in the journal Geroscience examined 23 studies and found that higher Mediterranean diet adherence was consistently associated with stronger performance on cognitive assessments and better maintained mental sharpness in older adults, a signal that held even after researchers adjusted for age, education level, and lifestyle confounders. A separate 2024 systematic review in BJP Psych Open, led by NHS-affiliated researchers from the University of Birmingham, examined Mediterranean diet adherence in adults living with severe mental illness and found the dietary pattern was associated with improved functional outcomes even in this higher-need clinical population. The Frontiers in Molecular Neuroscience, March 2026 systematic review specifically linked Mediterranean diet adherence to memory performance and sustained cognitive function through microbiota-mediated gut-brain mechanisms. What emerges from this body of evidence is a coherent picture. The same eating pattern associated with mood support also appears associated with cognitive resilience through overlapping but distinct biological pathways. And that brings us to what this means on a practical, daily level. Here is the honest summary. 104 studies across more than 20 countries, selected as the Nutrition Society's April 2026 Paper of the Month, found consistent associations between Mediterranean dietary adherence and lower depression, anxiety, and stress, alongside emerging signals for cognitive performance and brain resilience. The mechanisms are real, documented, and biologically plausible. The gut-brain axis, anti-inflammatory omega-3 and polyphenol compounds, and microbiota-mediated neurotransmitter production. None of this replaces clinical care for diagnosed mental health conditions, but it does reframe how we think about food, not as background noise, but as an active input into the biological systems that govern how we feel and think every single day. The practical starting point is not perfection, it is pattern. More oily fish, more legumes, more olive oil, more colorful vegetables, less processed food, done consistently over weeks, not days. If you want the full structured approach, a 7-day Mediterranean meal plan built around exactly this evidence, the link is in the description.